Good morning, everybody. It's nice to have you again on the third day of the celebration of Financial Inclusion Week across the globe. I remain Ajetumobi Olumayowa, the Program Director for Financial Inclusion, Nigeria and Africa. Well, it's another wonderful opportunity for all of us to be here. It's been an exciting time during the week, globally and across Africa. Um, Thank you for coming to grace your presence today on the topic inclusive growth for women in a digital world. Without wasting much time, I'm going to invite the moderator of today, Mr. Stephen Abba, to take the lead as the discussion continues. Steve, over to you. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, sir. Thank you very much for the introduction, and I'm excited to be on this call with some very industrious and beautiful women. And we all know that the girl child and the woman, they form the basis of our families and the success of the economy on the whole. So this morning, we will be discussing basically inclusive growth for women in a digital world. And with me on this panel are 5 distinguished leaders in the industry that have done a whole lot when it comes to women advocacy and women in financial inclusion. I'll quickly go through to introduce each of them on the call. But key to note is that, we've been building from the first day of Financial Inclusion Week to the second day. We've done inclusive growth leveraging agency banking. We've done the inclusive growth leveraging technology. And I want to see how women can help drive financial inclusion. We still have a huge gap of those that are financially excluded out of the economy. So I'm sure the leaders on this call will do justice to this topic, and I'll just go through after them one after the other. So to begin with, it is with pleasure I want to introduce Ashley Emmanuel. Ashley Emmanuel is a co-founder and chief operating officer of Semicolon, a company that is solving the problem of youth unemployment in Africa by building tech-focused talent and businesses. Ashley coordinates Semicolon's approach to delivering innovative solutions related to education, talent management, and venture building. Prior now, she was the CEO of EFINA. EFINA is the non-profit organization that drives inclusive finance in Nigeria through research, advocacy, capacity building, and innovation. In that role, Ashley supervised leading research and engagement on financial sector innovation in Nigeria and oversaw the delivery of a multi-million-dollar innovation fund. And we all enjoy the results of those EFINA researches now. Ashley has been instrumental to getting those researches out to public domain. Ashley, it's my pleasure to welcome you on this panel. Welcome.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much. So I'll be moving on to Dayo Adewale. Dayo holds a degree in accounting from Benson Idahosa University and an MBA from Ladok K. Akintola University of Technology. He's a certified digital strategy he also has a certificate in digital strategy for business from Columbia Business School. Presently, Dayo is the MD CEO of Lifegate Microfinance Bank, and on that position, she gets to manage the bank towards its digitization plan and grows the passion of the bank for SMEs businesses in Lagos. Before joining Lifegate Bank, Dayo headed the commercial department of Edfin Microfinance, where he adequately expressed proficiency and understanding of finance and technology and the need of education ecosystem, especially in Lagos. Dayo started her career in SME sector with AB Microfinance Bank, and who have their head office in Berlin, in Germany in 2009. Dayo is the author of SME in a Few Minutes and works on a weekly blog that addresses the business expansion of SMEs. It is with great pleasure I want to welcome Dayo to this call. Dayo Adewale, you're welcome. Okay, I'm not sure she's here yet.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Glad to be here. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. So I'll go back to introduce Bola Oduyali. Mrs. Bola is the founder and chief executive of CreditWise Financials Limited, Nigeria, a company that is committed to support the eradication of poverty and accelerating gender equality by enabling financial access for women, MSMEs at the bottom of the pyramid. Bola has been in the financial services for over 25 years now, and she has worked in renowned and reputable organizations like Union Bank, Standard Chartered Bank in Nigeria and South Africa. She rose to the position of Director of Financial Institutions in Africa before relocating to Canada. She worked with the State Street Financials Group in Toronto, where she led a team in charge of regulatory finance, compliance, advising North American and European financial institutions on the implementation of regulatory and tax reporting standards. Until December 2020, she was the CEO of Safe Trust Mortgage Bank in Nigeria, where she worked with forensic auditors, regulators, and investors to lead the restructuring of the mortgage bank. Bola holds a degree in chemistry from the University of Ibadan and an MBA from the University of Lagos. It is with great pleasure I want to welcome Bola to this section. Bola, you're welcome. Are you with us?
I'm with you. Can you hear me?
All right. Yes, I can hear you. Okay, so moving on, I want to introduce also Martina Medak. Martina is the head of business development and strategy at 9PSB. Since the opening of the PSB in 2020, she has focused on delivery of banking products and concepts through effective telco and fintech-like approach. With over a decade-long experience in sales and business development in Nigeria and other emerging markets in Africa within telecommunications, technology, and fintech industry, Martina has brought a wealth of experience to 9PSB during crucial phase of its rollout, contributing the building accessibility of services to the unbanked via establishing and launching agent banking network for 9PSB. She's secured strategic partnerships for easy access to a suite of products through digital channels, leveraging on cross-sectoral collaboration to deliver superior experience to 9PSB customers. Martina was appointed as a committee member on behalf of 9PSB on the CBN-led project to deliver the strategy to leverage agent network for women's financial inclusion in Nigeria, representing payment service banks as a stakeholder. Martina, you are welcome to this segment.
Thank you very much, Stephen, and good morning, everyone, participants and visitors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're excited to have you. So finally, I have Bola Oduyali. Bola is the founder and chief executive of CreditWise Financial.
You already said that. We're done.
I've introduced Bola. Bola, you're welcome.
Yes. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. So I want to sincerely appreciate each and every one of you for joining in the call, considering your very, very busy schedules, and we promise we'll keep to time as we said earlier. So, I mean, just to hit at it right, we'll want to get into the questions, and we are all aware the role women play in financial inclusion in Nigeria. So to begin with, I'll start with Ashley Manuel. And the question is, how can the gender gap be bridged in the fintech space for inclusive growth in the digital era?
All right, thank you. And again, it's really a pleasure to be here. So that's a really big question, bridging the gender gap with fintech. I think we can sort of break it into two pieces. So first of all, we know that there's a really significant gender gap in financial inclusion globally, across Africa, and in Nigeria as well. And we know that digital financial services are essential to driving financial inclusion generally, and also driving gender equality in financial access, really eliminating that gender gap. So I think fintech really plays a crucial role there. But we know that, and research by Athena, as well as others, has shown that there's a really significant gender gap in terms of fintech leadership, kind of the entire employee base, and in terms of people who are building, running, and working for fintechs. So we really need to drive more gender inclusion within the fintechs themselves, and also drive, kind of work on making sure that fintechs, regardless of who's running and working for them, also take a gender lens when thinking about deploying their products and services. Because generally, when financial service providers don't think about gender, they just sort of design for men by default. So some of the ways that we can do this in terms of driving gender equality for fintechs is really being deliberate about building a tech talent pipeline, which is what I'm now doing at Semicolon. There's a classroom next to me. I think you can hear them. Some of the people we're training. I'll ask them to quiet down before I speak again. But building that tech talent and really driving gender equality in that tech talent, which we can talk more about. Creating an enabling environment for women to build and lead fintechs, which for various reasons, it's difficult for women to successfully run companies, especially startups, which require a lot of networking around and fundraising and so forth. And then also helping fintechs really understand gender dynamics, and then deliberately design solutions for women.
All right, thank you very much. I hear you say we need to create an enabling environment for the women to thrive, and I mean that involves getting them to do more of the techie things, for them to create those viable solutions. I'll encourage women to participate more in providing those services for digital growth and all that. So let me take it to Martina Medak. Martina, are you here?
Yes, I am.
Good morning once again.
Good morning.
In your own opinion, considering what we are looking at, how to, incorporate women more to build this digital world, what do you think are the right policies to foster the equitable participation of women in the digital economy? Are there policies, are there suggestions, innovations that you can advise us to see, to put in place, to encourage more women to participate in the digital economy?
Thank you very much, Stephen. Good morning once again. Yes, definitely there is always room for improvement in policy making to achieve a certain target that we want. In this case, higher participation of women in the digital economy and digital fintech industry. Now, let me start from the fact that it is not only the policies within the fintech space or the digital technology policies that will help women to participate more in the industry. It starts also, by resolving some of the inequalities and gender gaps in all other areas, including the participation in the economy in general. So, but if we focus on trying to resolve some of the issues there, when we get to the policies in the fintech space, in the digital economy, certainly there could be improvements on the already existing policies, or even creating some new ones. So an example would be, and we have seen that in 9PSB in particular, when we started focusing on developing various channels, agency banking being one of the most important one for us to achieve financial inclusion and participation of women in the digital economy, is, for example, the issue of insufficient or lack of thereof KYC documentation or KYC information and data that are required by the existing policies for women, not just to participate in the digital economy, but to become part of the financial system, even for opening a bank account. So, I mean, Nigeria is obviously culturally, geographically very, very diverse. And as such, we need to take into considerations those parameters that are sometimes prohibiting us, prohibiting women to become included in order because they don't have sufficient KYC documentation that is required by the regulation. So maybe losing it while still maintaining high standards of security, compliance, and so on, but losing the or lowering the entry level for women would be definitely not. So it would start with then more women getting financially included, and then by extension to participate for them in the digital world. The other area that we could look into, and again, 9PSB being a payment service bank, being at the meeting point of the banking and the technology, even telecom world, we are very much focused on trying to see how we can improve access to various channels. So there are obviously, when it comes to accessing the channels for women, for anyone, but in this case for women in particular, there are two major challenges. First one is the infrastructure gap, whether it's on the various digital channels or the last mile coverage and so on, which cannot be maybe addressed by the policies as such. But there is another aspect also of challenge that we are seeing in access for women to the digital economy and financial services, and that is also a cost of those services. So if we can as well craft the policies that will encourage women to participate in the digital economy by lowering prices of channels for digital access, that would definitely help a lot for them to become more included and eventually to drive that cash to cashless society.
Wow, thank you very much, Martina. That's a great insight to, these issues. I hear you say KYC has been a barrier, for the women to get further included. There's cultural diversity, in some cultures in Nigeria, the women are not allowed to do certain things, And then we also talked about formulating the new policies and all. And then, essentially key from what I hear is the need to lower in the cost, more like lowering the barrier of entry for women. So all these challenges, I'm sure, if properly looked into, can actually grow the rate of inclusion and all that. But moving forward, let me just get the idea of Mrs. Bola. Women have enormous potentials for making greater contributions to economic growth, right? Through job creation, innovation, and social inclusion. How can we, bearing in mind these challenges we've talked about, or Martina mentioned, how can we ensure advanced capacity building among women in the fintech space? Mrs. Bola, can you help us with that?
Yes, thank you very much, Stephen, and it's a really big pleasure to be here. I think I'd like to look at it from a slightly different perspective from the rest of the panelists, and it's about the why. Why we keep talking about gender gaps? Why is there a gender gap in every facet of the economy, of the society? As a matter of fact, this discrimination starts very early from the kind of education the girl child gets until when she gets it. Parents or the fathers prioritizing the education of the boy child over that of the girl child. It is a root cause, it's a problem, and we sort of have a bandit solution. Let's do this financial literacy, but there's a root cause. There's a basic reason why all these things are happening to the girls. in both private and public spheres. Women face occupational segregation. They have multiple barriers. They have lack of access to land, to capital, financial resources, technology. You have, the issues of gender-based violence, the girl-child early marriage. A child that gets married at 11 or 12, how is she ever going to get out of poverty? She cannot, because obviously she's never going to get educated. Her children quite likely will not get educated. So it goes, it's deeper than, just thinking about financial, inclusion at the surface. And so we really need to know why. And, in politics, there's gender gap. In the workplace, there's gender gap. Financial independence, unemployment. Women lag behind men in every, using every available indices. We lag behind men. And the question is why? Why do we have fewer economic opportunities? We have less than half of all eligible women participating in the labor force, compared to men, 75%. Why? Why is that? It's deep-rooted. It's a problem. And it's not only limited to Nigeria, by the way. It's a global problem. Just that it's more obvious in the developing economies than in the developed world. It's much better though. There's been a lot of effort at gearing and correcting it, but it's still a lot. They're more likely, women are more likely to work in the informal employment than the formal. So you find women are the ones in the marketplace, and it's a huge part of the economy, by the way, economic activities of the country. But it's informal, here Martina actually talking about the fact that they don't even have ordinary IDs. They can't drive, so where would they have, they don't have utility bills. So how do they get financially included when you cannot even do basic KYC for these women? Because they're basically held down in poverty, right? So it's
because men suck.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so and COVID-19 even made it worse, unprecedented job losses. And then you have men and women having to stay at home, but the man is the one going out to work because the kids are out of school, So the women had to stay back at home and look after the kids. So it now made it worse for the women. So
also because men suck.
No, we can hear you, whoever that is. So women do not actually enjoy the same access to financial services as men, both before the pandemic, and it's been made worse after the pandemic. So I think we need to, first of all, attempt to address those issues, address those root causes. Why? It's a social problem. You have in the North, people, they don't even believe that, the girl child needs to be educated. So how do we even financially include them? How do we teach them, there's internet, when the husband or the father doesn't even allow her access to that internet in the first place because they believe it's evil or whatever the case, she may get corrupted. So those are the issues that we're having to deal with. And before we can talk about even policies and regulations or making efforts, we will make the effort, but it's really not going to yield much because those root causes have not been addressed. And really, who will need to address it? It's the men, because the men are the decision makers, not the women. The men are the ones that will make that decision. The men are the ones that are the bosses. They are, in the Senate. They're the ones in the presidency. They're the ones that are parents, that are husbands, they're the ones that make the decision over the women. So I think that's really where I will start from before we can even say, okay, how do we regulate? Because we can do all the regulations. There's states that have said you cannot marry a girl out until she's 18, but they still do it anyways, because it's claimed, it's Islam, it's cultural, so how? So which means we need to talk to those men, deal with those men, moral suasion, and make sure that they come along with us on this journey. And then, I think it will make a lot of sense. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much for that, Mrs. Bola. I mean, from what you say, it's obvious that we need to first investigate down to the root causes and ask those vital questions. Say, why is it like this? Is it beyond the KYC issue? Is it the cultural diversity? How do we get to correct it? Well, I'm sure that's when we begin to talk around financial literacy. I mean, get to teach these people how to get out of their shelves, that you need to get empowered, you need to work to drive the economy and all. Thank you very much. So, I mean, just leveraging on that question, I want to ask Mrs. Dyer. You know, we've heard about the challenges, but the question now is, why is women's empowerment in the digital world important?
Okay, thank you very much, Stephen. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can hear you, Dyer. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for joining in. Okay, so it's important that the women are included in the all the digital race that we are running. If we do not include the women, we are leaving out a key stakeholder, because the women are in charge, they take care of the children, the children are more closer to the women. The women handle a lot of key issues in the homes. And if you're talking about financial inclusion, if we do not include the women in the decision at the beginning, all the digital movement that we are talking about, we are going to miss out, because they are key stakeholders. Women are key stakeholders in every of those decisions that we are taking. They are key stakeholders. Women form more than 50% of the people who are actually being affected by this. It's like when you want to create a product and you said, okay, let's sit down and just create this product, then you sell it to the people. The people you are going to sell it with, their own decision, their response is more important to whatever decision you are taking. That's how it is with women. We form 50%, more than 50% of the people who are going to be impacted by this digital race that we are running. So if we are not part of the decision at the beginning, then we have a lot of mismatched policies that we really don't know that these policies do not encourage women, because women are not part of the people who are taking this decision. So you see, the women are key stakeholders when it comes to these decisions. When it comes to the digital era, we cannot sideline the women and say we are designing this. We will just do everything. We think we have done something fantastic and we'll take it out there. We are now wondering how come there's no sticky engagement. There won't be sticky engagement, because the people that's going to drive this, enjoy this, preach this, like practically live this, were left out from the decision making. So you see, we need to include the women, because the women are key stakeholders in every of these decisions we are taking towards digitizing every aspect. The women are key stakeholders, so we need to involve them even at the beginning. Thank you.
Dyer, thank you very much. I hear you and I hear you clearly. Women are key stakeholders, so it begins with the woman. So, I mean, moving forward, we want to still put some kind of perspective to the attempt of including these women. You know, we've talked about the challenges, we've talked about financial literacy. So I want to ask Ashley this time around, you know, digital financial literacy, you know, in the fintech space, you know, what is the role of financial literacy, you know, in the fintech space, you know, for financial inclusion growth generally, and then maybe just cursor your thinking to women again.
All right, thank you. So, I mean, financial literacy is definitely important. I think, you know, as I think Martina had pointed out, and maybe some other panelists, it's definitely not the whole story, right? So we need to enable financial literacy alone won't solve the problem. It needs to sort of be just in time. It needs to happen at the same time that we're building out access, you know, and empowering women in various other ways. But it is important. So people need to have basic awareness and skills related to meeting their financial needs, understanding what products and services are available, ideally understanding, you know, where kind of how risk is present in the market, because we know unfortunately, there's still kind of scams and other things out there. And we know that the trust is a really important factor. And a lot of people don't engage with formal financial, like regulated financial services, just because they don't trust them. But so understanding, you know, what protections do exist and the role of regulators like the central bank, like the insurance regulator, like NDIC, so forth, is important. I would say beyond that, what we call digital literacy is also important. So it's really important for people to have access to those digital channels. And ideally, we're building products and services that can be what we call phygital, right? So a little bit of physical, a little bit of digital as people are getting onboarded into the system. That's where we have agents and others play a really important role. And we're ideally building out services that people can access if they have one of those Nokia Torchlight phones, right? Even if they don't have a smartphone. But up and down, we want to build digital access, basic digital literacy, and then over time, really kind of foundational digital skills are also really important for everybody. And I think that that's also critical for getting on the ladder to the kind of the jobs of the future, so to speak, which is important as well.
Thank you very much. So I can just pick some 4 key items, which financial literacy does for the woman, which is digital access, digital literacy, the skills, and then the job creation. So, this will go a long way in including these women. So let me just get to touch on Martina once again. Martina, from 9PSB, you work in the private sector, and then you've done 1 or 2 things with government, as you earlier said. In your own opinion, what do you think the government and private sector can do to support female-led fintech businesses in the digital world?
Yeah, it's always a matter of collaboration, whether it's between the stakeholders in the private sector solely, but by extension as well, always between as well the government and the private sector. So again, as the other participants mentioned, to incite the participation of women in the digital world by working in digital companies, or by creating and being founders and the leaders of those companies. It's a result of an organic growth. So if we have the base whereby we again start from the very bottom to educate girls, to include more girls and women into the economy, into different sectors, it will filtrate, and it will come to the point whereby organically we will just have more women participating in the digital world, working in the companies that drive that digital transformation and digital technology in Nigeria. Again, you are asking on the collaboration between government and private sector, and it comes down again to the policies. But the policies need to come in the moment when we are actually when we ensure that there is a critical mass of women that are able to participate in that digital economy. And that is something what was it Madame Dayo who said that we need to go to the roots and see what is the actually the cultural background, and how we can empower those women and girls to start participating in the economy. Government could help always, in a sense that they should provide the enabling environment for the private sector then to operationally drive those initiatives as such. And in the end, why are still people, not just women, but people financially excluded? Some of them, and most of them, are actually, of course, with lack of access to the financial systems. Poverty is one of the biggest reasons that people are not participating in the financial sector, because obviously, in order to be banked, you need to have something to bank on. So, as such, alleviation of poverty is definitely the project, the initiative that needs to be driven by the government sector and of course supported by the private sector, who will then deploy it and implement it on ground in order to achieve that.
Wow, thank you very, very much. That's a deep, full insight, into that. So moving beyond the contributions of the private sector and the government, I mean, I want to get the thoughts of Bola on this, Mrs. Bola on this, what initiatives do you think women can adopt? Not to ask the why question, why women? Now you understand that they need to be part of the ecosystem, to build sustainable digital growth, I mean, complementing each other. So tell me, what initiatives do you think women can adopt, to make these things faster and develop Africa's digital economy?
Okay, thank you very much again. I think, we first even actually help these women, or to have these initiatives, we have to look at, because financial inclusion, even in the digital age, should not be an end in itself. There's a reason behind it. Why? It's for economic empowerment of these women, right? So first thing is, are they able to generate enough income? Okay, because really, if there's no income generated, there's no need to speak about financial inclusion for women, because even if she has access, and she needs that access, and that's why we're talking about, okay, let's teach her how to, use the internet, let's her have access to, the tools, but does she have income to put in the account? Then, because if she doesn't, then there's no usage. And so access is useless if there's no usage, because you'll not be able to use it. You can say, okay, open an account, but yeah, there's no money to put in it. So that empowerment is important, right? And when you're talking about access or usage, you're not only talking about opening an account. Does she have access to insurance, pensions, credit, accounting services, just an all-round services that can help empower her totally. Because some women will have this money, they have an idea what to do with it, and then they spend it on, friends and family, or they spend it on parties, because there really is no financial literacy. So which means even when we give her access, she's generating income, we're not still improving her basic standard of living, because she has no idea how to work with these tools that these things that, she has. So it's an all-inclusive, program that needs to be put in place for these women to move them from point A to point B, from point A to point B. And it's not just one. Oh, okay, let's give them. There's so many programs like that in the North. They provide women with internet access. They provide them with small phones. They can do their banking on the phone. And then I think it was actually that I talked about trust. There's a lack of trust from the women, because there's so much cybersecurity issues going on now, especially in the advent of BVN being linked to the SIM card. Your phone has become a new form of briefcase. It's not, gone are the days when my phone got lost, I'll be worried about losing my contacts. It's no longer about losing my contacts. It's about losing my whole self when my phone gets lost, goes missing. I worry about my, personal profile, my personal information. People can, within 5 minutes, get loans in my name fraudulently, wipe out my bank account within 10 minutes. So why am I even saying, why would a woman now say, and be encouraged to do this, when I know that I have a friend that she doesn't do any internet, and she was the director of Central Bank. She does not use internet banking. She doesn't. She has access, she has income, she has everything, but she doesn't, because she doesn't trust that system. So the trust is not there. And your phone gets missing and your whole life is gone. So things, and the banks are not helping. I'm sorry to say, the fintechs are not helping. They're more interested in building that mass market, turnaround time, in opening accounts, so they're not really, looking at the detailed KYC. What do you need to make sure that, this account is secured and nobody has, the third party or a wrong person does not have access to this account, or that this person is not opening this account for the wrong reasons. We have a long way to go. I mean, you see online all the time, women opening up their body, clothes in banking halls because some money just went missing, in their accounts. Yeah. So how do we even, and banks are, banks and financial institutions, they're sort of like living in denial. They're not admitting the problem. They're not, because it's a major issue and it's a major barrier to financial inclusion, by the way, because what's the point if I do this and I'm going to lose my money? My mom will never. She tells you, no, I don't want ATM card. I don't want anything. I just want to go into the bank and fill out a form and collect my money. Because funny people call me on the phone all the time, Madam, have you got your ATM card? Can I have your passport? So we need to put all of those things in place to make sure that, we can at least say these women are safe, their monies are safe, they get this income and the money is safe in the bank that way, accounts that we're opening for them. Thank you.
All right, Mrs. Bola, thank you very much for those insights. I mean, these initiatives begins, and I mean, it involves everybody, the providers, the regulators, and even the users. You have to be consciously on it, to understand how these things work.
Absolutely.
And then once they understand these things, as Ashley said, financial literacy, it gets to build their trust, right? And then it gets to finally increase adoption of these services for the women. So speaking on that, I want to touch on Dayo again. We've seen what can be done, the initiatives, and we now understand that the regulation has to be involved, right? So Dayo, what do you think? How can women be more involved in this decision-making process of the regulatory bodies, because for policies that will affect them directly to come out, they have to be involved in that process, right? They have to be involved in that process, formulating it, rolling it out, and to ensure that it brings about more adoption for the woman. So what kind of decision-making process, how can they be more involved, when it comes to this, creating these decision-making bodies with the regulators?
Okay, thank you very much, Stephen. But before I answer that, I would like to just add one point to what Bola said. So what I want to add is that fintech companies need to think about simple. How simple can I make this? You see, everyone is trying to develop this fantastic app for loans, for savings. Just like Bola said, what these women need is not just savings or loans. So they need business advisory, they need insurance, they need all these things. So you see people come up with different technology app that can do this, that can do that, but they are all in an Android phone. How can you simplify this enough for inclusion for people who do not use this? Because they are more vulnerable. If you send me a message and you say, send me your code, your this, of course, I'm learned enough to know that I shouldn't be sending you this code. But that woman, is she learned enough to know that she shouldn't send this code anyway? She's not. So she's more vulnerable to this attack than people who are like us, who are okay. We can actually understand that this actually is a scam. But you see, these women fall prey to these scammers a lot. And that's why you see that they do not trust the system. Now, if the fintech companies with all the when I meet with someone and they say, oh, this is the new thing we are doing now, I just sit down and I look, and my question is, yes, it's fantastic, but is this simple enough for inclusion? Is it simple enough? Because for me to use, even me, sometimes I don't enjoy it. Some fintech companies just assume that we think the way they think. So they assume that you should know that when you press this, you should press this. When you press this, you should go here, you should know. No, we don't know. Because we are not you. We don't know. So you see, you not see this gap in sticky user experience. It's not there because we do not know. You just assume customer journey, not the actual customer journey, but the one you assumed. So you see, I find it difficult to use some of them. Now imagine people who do not have the capacity that people like us have. How are they going to do that? So when we are talking about bringing the women into the digital world, we need to think about making all this our fantastic product simple enough for inclusion. Remembering that these women, they need, for you to take their trust, you have to first of all bring them in, and it has to be gradual. They would rather give their money to Alajo. That's why the fact that we have agency banking everywhere. They still trust people who they don't know. Not that they've not fallen victim of those ones, so they have, but they will still give them their money. You see, somehow they just do not trust the system, but they can if we bring them in. And how we bring them in is to make all our fantastic gadgets, make it simple enough for inclusion. It does not have to be only Android. I don't know, why must it be only an Android phone? We have a lot of people who do not use Android phone. What have you designed for those kind of people? Nothing, and everybody is struggling for this same set of people who can use the mobile phone. Hey, there's a lot who can't. What do you have for those people? So I'm calling out to fintechs. You are building this, you are designing this. How simple is it for inclusion? How simple it is, okay? This is how we can bring them in, and when you bring them in, you can start to see that the system is not as terrible as they think it is, then they'll start trusting it. Now to what you asked me about how women can be part of it. Women cannot be part of it until they are invited. Women have to be invited. Women have to be invited. The regulatory body, for every key decision that we know will affect the women, women have to form more than 50% of those people. Underrepresentation is one of the things affecting the women. Underrepresentation, you know, sorry, when we were in secondary school and we're being taught economics, and we were taught that one of the problems of developing company is planning from above. So you are in Germany, you are making plans for people in Nigeria. It won't work. That is exactly what we are going through now. So people who are taking this decision, they are not in the market. They're not seeing what is happening where some of these women are. I will appreciate the fact that a lot has been done. Now, if you go online, you see women are doing things. According to AliExpress report, more than 50% of the businesses on Ali is actually run by women. Thank God, during COVID, a lot of women started running business online. We now saw that you can actually be a woman, taking care of the home, and still run a business from the comfort of your home. Thank God for technology, but we need more of this so that women can be doing what women are doing and still be able to be part of economic growth. Like Bola said, what is the end? It's economic growth. So it's not about give you an Android phone. If I'm not going to use it, it's not going to make impact in my life, or a key decision when I'm going to spend my money or things like that, then it's of no use, actually. So what we are driving is economic growth. How do we do that? Women have to be invited. We know that there are a lot of things in regulatory bodies who now involve women, but I'm saying that
you are muted. Okay. I think, okay, thank you very much. So what we'll do is we'll definitely inform the regulators and the key stakeholders to send that invitation out to women, and we'll definitely be part of that process. So Dayo, I'll still come back to you. You know, you mentioned one or two things around technology, you know, the world's embracing technology and all that, you know. How and in what way can we say, you know, the future generation of the girls be led into the fintech sector, you know, beyond the invitation, right? Beyond the invitation, what other ways can we point to say, so I mean, the future generations of women be led into the fintech sector? I mean, it has to start now, right? But what in your opinion are the other ways we can lead the woman to getting into fintech? Because most of the times you go into companies, you go to the IT department, all you see is 90%, 99% males, and then one female or something, you know. So what do you think we can do, you know, for them to embrace more of this technology and lead the female into the fintech sector? I want you to briefly touch on that, and then Ashley also touches on that too.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, very quick, very fast. I'll say this is the work for the, first of all, the cultural mind shift. You know, it's a norm that when you see your child on phone, we just assume that they are consuming content. And because we do not have trust of all the content out there to protect our children, which we restrict them from using, being online and doing all this. But you see, There's no way. We cannot continue to live in self-denial and think, oh, by doing this, we are protecting the girl child. No, we are not protecting the girl child, because exposure is also protection. You can protect the child by exposing the child to what is available there and helping the child to choose what is the right way and what is the wrong way. But denying this child access is not protection at all. Instead, you are hindering a lot of things. You are hindering that child from progressing and achieving what the child can do. Women can do a lot. Young girls do a lot, but we need to remove that mindset that they are just consuming wrong content. No, there are great content online. Also, education-wise, from tender age now, we need to start introducing this to them, not just the girl child, for everyone, and not just making people feel that we should let the boys have more access than the girls. No, everyone should have an access to it. We should create a same field for everyone to learn. From the schools, we should start introducing this. Then, of course, it brings me down to the women being a key stakeholder. There is no way, if the parents are not really inclined with this, it will be a hindrance. But when we can carry the women along, because these children spend more time with their parents. So when the parents understand that, see, we need this, then they'll be able to encourage the girl child to do this. But it should be part of, I think it's part of the curriculum actually in the education sector. We should do more. Yeah. Women in STEM. There's underrepresentation in that area too. We just need to do more. We have associations who come together to sponsor girls who are doing fantastic things in the tech world. I think we should do more of that. And I think the government should recognize that. Recognize women who are doing more, because we know that we need this. So it's when you know that this is what I need right now, we focus on it. We need this. So let's government also focus on that. Recognize women who are doing great things in the tech world. Then also we women, we need to come together and encourage it, because we know that the future depends on this. So we need to come together, form associations, encourage girls in STEM, and also one of the key hindrances is also finance. Okay, how do we make finance available for girls who have interest in this thing, but they come from background where they are financially constrained? So how do we ensure that they have access to finance to do all these things? I think if we can do this, we'll be able to, from a tender age, inculcate that idea into
lead them into. Yeah. All right, thank you very much. So just before I allow Ashley to take it on, there's a question on the chat box, so I'll just read out that question and then we quickly take it before we move on. The northern area of Nigeria is having huge numbers of women who are relatively not educated. How can we have inclusion growth for women in these said areas in view of their religion?
I can take that question as well, if you'd like. So in terms of northern Nigeria, and I put a little bit of commentary in the chat, as well as a link to a report, but definitely that's really critical for us to think about. Some research by Afina and the CBN on an assessment of women's financial inclusion in Nigeria, done a few years ago, found that women in the North are less likely to be financially included than women in the South, even when you hold all other factors equal, including religion. So a Christian woman in the North is less likely to be financially included than a Christian woman in the South, for example. So we see that there are definitely cultural factors there. I mean, I think there's a lot, but one of the things I would say is that financial service providers need to be deliberate about designing for all groups of people, including women in the North. So we know that women in the North tend to have more, or well, just women in general in Nigeria, their mobility is not the same as men. So they may spend more of their time at home. If they have young children, particularly, it's hard for them to move. For social reasons, they may not be as mobile. Oftentimes, the home, place of worship, maybe markets and so forth, they'll have a kind of a smaller circle of movement. They may also not interact with men one-on-one for, both reasons of comfort and maybe cultural reasons. So we can think about, for example, deploying female agents to go to locations where women actually are, in order for them to be able to access financial services. We can think about things, if women send older children to go for them? How do we design services so that those children can safely, conduct whatever transactions, kind of low value transactions they need, etc. So I think that there's a lot around really deliberately designing for that demographic. But I've dropped a link to the report in the chat because there are some more specific recommendations in that report, which I thought were really good. So back to the question of building kind of the capacity or building a future digital workforce of women who can drive the next generation of fintech. First of all, I would say this is really critical. We know that we have a shortage of software engineers globally. We definitely have a shortage in Africa and in Nigeria, and they're getting drawn away by other markets very rapidly. And some recent research by McKinsey about trends and future of fintech really highlighted this once again as a key constraint. So we know that we need as many software engineers as we can get. And if we're limiting ourselves to half the population, we're really kind of shortchanging ourselves. We also know that, I mean, as you mentioned, Stephen, in the introduction, I'm now running a business called Semicolon, training software engineers. And the reason I'm doing this is because I see TIP as the most significant impact pathway. So for any young Nigerian, or not even young, any Nigerian who wants to really transform his or her life and significantly increase income opportunities and so forth, building skills, good quality skills in tech, I see as the most accessible way to do that. And we don't want to limit that opportunity to men only. But as Dio really nicely outlined, there are so many barriers starting from very young age for women in terms of being able to access that space. We've got the gender gaps in education, including in math and science. Young women are often not aware that they can even have a career in tech. They're decision makers, so the parents, guardians, as they get older, the boyfriends, the husbands, the whoever else, who are helping, who either are making decisions for them or are very influential in their decision making, oftentimes are not supportive of women pursuing careers in tech. Maybe not aware, or maybe some parents still today are deliberately opposed to that, believe it or not. And in fact, we've at Semicolon, we see so many women who go through our application back and they say, sorry, I'm not coming again. My parents said no. One person, her husband said, go him. She's not supposed to come for training, right? So we need to really think about building that awareness and kind of, culturally supporting, seeing a career in tech as viable, accessible for women, and supporting women kind of broadly in doing that. And then I think the other thing I would just highlight that Dio also touched on is, for the women who then do want to pursue a career in tech, making opportunities available to do that. So we know, right now, there's a lack of training opportunities for them, which again is part of why large part of why we created Semicolon. Then we know that women, may not, they have lower income, they may not have the savings and so forth. So we need to look at innovative ways to open their access, Dio, as you mentioned, in terms of financial access, right? So they can't pay for the training up front. For Semicolon, we run a student loan program for that reason. But there's still, I think that as an industry, we can kind of come up with more ways to address those financial barriers and really open up access to high quality and accessible training for women to be able to pursue careers in tech.
Wow, thank you very much, Ashley. That's been very, very, very insightful. So let me just quickly take another question from the group. This is from Blessing Timothy.
There's an interference on this call.
Sorry? Okay, so Blessing Timothy is asking, we are aware of how women in rural areas are digitally and financially excluded. Taking myself as an example, I am a graduate, but I'm hearing the term financial inclusion for the first time during this conference. I am sure a section of learned females out there who are not aware also, right? How do we reach out to this sect and encourage them to be financially included? I think we should have touched on that, but Mrs. Bola, do you want to take on that?
Correct. Thank you very much. So I just want to say that
excuse me, Bola, just a second, please. Can you kindly mute your phone if your system, if you're not presenting? There's an interference coming in from somewhere and it's distorting this session. Thank you.
Thank you.
You can go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. Yes, I think the question is, how do we make sure women are financially included?
Yes, absolutely, yes.
Okay, all right. So, I mean, I think we've covered quite a bit of that over the course of this discussion. So it is a deliberate effort. It has to be deliberate. And as I had said earlier, we look at the root cause and then we deal with that root cause. Basically, because financial inclusion didn't just happen in a day. It was something that happened. It happened over a course of generations and generations over the past years. And we need to now say what happened, what went wrong, and how do we address what went wrong. So we look at the laws of the land, for instance. We look at child marriages. What is going on? Why are children getting married? Why are children getting married early? What can we do to make sure that this is stopped? And then, of course, there has to be some sort of protectionist laws and regulations by the country, because the government has to take it very serious. And to be honest, the central bank has really gone far in making sure this is done, like, percentage representation of women on boards, on bank boards at least. And you can see over the past few years, there has been that shift from mainly men dominated boards going towards women, but that's because there's been a lot of awareness. And then there are a lot of women-based associations, WIMBs, for instance, they're all WIMCA, so many associations that are actively, creating that awareness about women needing to be represented. And then, of course, creating products specifically targeted at women, because what has happened over the years is that, it's men that create the products and they create it for themselves. So we now have to be deliberate in creating those products for women, making sure that women, have access to finance, for instance. Exactly, somebody has just perception is important, because also women themselves, they're not helping themselves because we have typically lacked confidence. We have lacked, we don't want to sit in the, when two people are, vying for a job, a man and a woman, for instance, the man will be aggressive in demanding for his rights, in terms of pay and all that. But the woman, usually, oh yeah, they've offered me 100,000. I think I'm good. I'm good. We tend to give up easily. We tend to second guess ourselves. So we women, we need to work on ourselves and make sure that we are out there. We are out there, and the financial literacy is key. We need to really. So the question I always ask people about financial independence, are you financially independent? Do you understand? Do you have control of your money? Do you have control? Do you know if whoever, your husband, your father, whoever the male person around your life that is typically, influencing you, if the person is no longer there, are you able to stand on your own? It's a question you need to ask yourself all the time, And then if you now have that, are you able to also take care of your money? Do you understand investments, for instance? Because women only tend to save. Oh, I have savings accounts, that's it. You don't many women don't even think about cryptos or think about investments in the stock market because they feel, oh, it's too risky. They're risk averse. And so they're not financially included in that space. And that is how you build generational wealth. You don't build wealth by saving only. You don't build wealth by doing a job. You build wealth by investing whatever you have earned into, investments, stocks, bonds, real estate. For many women, they're so risk averse, they're not interested in that. So we have to finance, so we now need to keep doing those awareness, making sure, and then training them, building the confidence of these women, because they lack that confidence to stand. And going back to Dayo's point about being invited, there's something we always say, that if they don't invite you to a table as a woman, build your own table. Build your own table. The men don't have to invite you, then you create your own table and you run with it. So because really the men are the dominant people, and we need to actually make ourselves go out there and walk the talk rather. It's not good enough doing this, but we need to take a step further and deal with the sociocultural issues, deal with government policies, regulatory policies. And it's all encompassing to make sure this gets done. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much. I hear that it's all encompassing. So and it's a collective responsibility for all stakeholders, as I said earlier. So, just as we're about to wind down, I want us to take just one more question for everybody, and then maybe we'll just take turns to speak to where we are today. So in terms of empowering women in the digital age, where do we stand as a country today? Where do we stand? So let me start with Martina.
Okay, thank you. I think I will refer to something what Dayo and Ashley have already touched upon, and that is basically building the products that are relevant and that are useful for women, for everyone in general, but for women in particular in this case. So what is happening is that indeed everyone is building, as I said, nice fancy applications, mobile apps that are coming on day-to-day basis out there in the market. But we should actually take a step back and start from the users, from women, and basically see what their daily habits are and what are their needs, and then just translate the user behavior into digital. So we don't need to focus on whether it's this channel, or is it Android phone, or is this USSD. The needs of women across Nigeria are so diverse, are so different. So a farmer, a cocoa farmer in Ondo State has a very different needs than a market woman in Lagos or in the north. Some of the financial or payment cycles are on a daily basis, and we know that again, Nigeria is mostly a daily economy. However, some of them have larger, and especially when it comes to farmers, have a longer payment cycles and so on. So it's not a rocket science. You should just really see what people need and how to translate, how to code it into a product that will then be relevant for them. And also always having in mind, which answers your question, having in mind what is the final goal of financial inclusion. And it's a question for all of us. What is financial inclusion? Is it opening a bank account that will serve for nothing, whether it's through USSD or to this channel or through that channel? So it shouldn't be, because if that bank account that is sitting out there is not serving its user and it's not serving the economy, then it's useless. And as such, what we need to have in mind and have it as an end goal is to achieve financial inclusion that is, again, contributing to each individual life of a person that is coming on board into the system and the economy in general. So it's a whole suite of products and services, again, depending on the needs of the individual, whether it's microcredits, microloans, access to payments, access to receive remittance from abroad, from their relatives and their children, you know, somewhere in the rural areas, in the village, in Edo State or wherever. So that is something that I want to, in particular, the private sector. That's mostly on the private sector, and for us in 9PSB, it has become a guiding star to see into the different market niche, into different market segments, and as such to design the products that will speak to those market segments, whether it's a product designed and fully managed by 9PSB or by our partners with whom we are working collaboratively. So I think that is something, as I said, for the private sector to focus on and to see, to start from the beginning, to see what do we actually need and what do we want to achieve. And then, of course, the final point or the activity that needs to happen is always the implementation, the delivery. So I will be very sad if in a year from now we are having another financial inclusion week for Nigeria and we are still discussing the same issues and we have not moved in the meantime a step forward. So let's all get to work, and it's been great really to participate in this very interesting, exciting discussion, and let us implement all what we have come up with as conclusions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Martina. That's been very, very helpful, you know, and very, very deep. So we'll see what we can do as stakeholders to make sure that by this time next year, the narrative must have changed, you know, in favor of the women, and must have had more women included. So let me hear from Dayo. Dayo, where do we stand? Where do we stand in terms of empowering women in the digital age, and then the future of women in the fintech industry generally?
Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you everyone who has spoken. I think we have addressed a lot of issues today. Okay, back to I want to add one to the question that person asked. She said she's a learned person and she's hearing financial inclusion for the first time. So I'm putting it to you, now that you have heard about it, do something about it. Collaboration is what we need. We all as women need to do something about it. You have heard about it, share it, talk about it. Anyone that picks it from you speaks about it. We keep talking about it. We keep speaking about it until it gets to where the key stakeholders have to take a decision about it. When that is all we are talking about. So yes, you too, say something about it. Now that you have heard it for the first time, it's okay. It's not too bad. Just you to do something about it. No matter how small, do something within your own sphere about letting people know that we need to include women. You know, we are doing all right. About where we stand when it comes to inclusion of women. Okay, so I would say we have actually improved. We can't deny that. It was worse. Okay, we have improved, but we are not there yet. So I think we just need to do more. We need to work with the regulatory bodies and the key decision takers. We need to work with them. Then also we, the women, need to reorient ourselves. We need to step out of this hiding. You cannot hide. You have to come out and let us do something about it. Let's come out. Let's speak up. Let's do something. Stop this mentality of okay, because I'm a woman, then this is how far I can go. No, that's not how far you can go. I mean, so you're first of all human before you are woman. So when you were born, you were human. Before they ask, okay, what's the gender? Okay, it's a woman. So what now makes you feel you are in any way incapacitated? No. As a matter of fact, you have more strength. You can do a lot of things together. So let's stop all this. It is true we are saying financial inclusion, like I think it was Bola that mentioned that even the women themselves need to do something about it. We cannot just sit down and say, oh, because they are not including us, then we stay out. No, when you shout on, when your success is shouting, nobody can deny it. So in that little way that you can do something that will make everybody know that you are doing something, then they can't deny you. So yes, we are not there yet. We are moving, but I think we ourselves still need to do something, because if we leave everything for the men to first of all open the door for us, you might need to kick that door down yourself, okay? You might not need to wait. So what I'm saying is that, yes, we are still far when it comes to including, especially the women. Now, there's still a gap. But as much as we are advocating for the bridging gap, we keep doing all these, we are collaborating, we are having association, we are talking about it. I'm leaving all those, and I'm saying that we, the women now that needs to be included, to need to do something. Okay, let's not accept. If you tell me sit down and I say no, show me what you want to show me. It doesn't matter if I'm a woman or not. I will do something with my life. So you see, we cannot just sit down and say they're going to hand it over to us. If they're not handing it over to us, then let's go take it. Okay, let's go take it. So while we try as much as possible to ensure that every other stakeholder is moving towards bridging this gap, we ourselves need to be part of it. So let's us to individually do something about this. That's what I have to say.
Wow, thank you. That's quite very passionate about getting these women involved. Thank you very much, Dayo. So I don't know, before I take the other speakers, do we have any questions from the participants? If you have questions, you can just indicate, and then let's take your questions quickly. While we are waiting the questions, we can just maybe quickly hear from Mrs. Bola on where we stand. Daya has said, I mean, we can't just keep sitting down and waiting. We have to take it by force if the men are not wanting to include the women. So, and that involves the women doing things outside the comfort zone, outside the box, just to get this financial literacy and everything they need to do to get empowered. Let's not also forget work-life balance is important for everyone, especially for the women too. We need to think around this flexibility, that suits them, motherhood, and having the women for inclusive growth in this era. So where do we stand, Bola, before I take on Ashley, and then we answer a few questions and go.
I think, looking at digital literacy, digital literacy has become almost as important as the traditional literacy that we've always talked about over the years. And, by now, over 90% of jobs anywhere in the world already has a digital component. And most jobs will still require sophisticated digital skills to really be able to do it properly. So if government is able to equip the girls with digital skills through prioritizing education in ICT subjects, it's very important. And, we won't also leave it to the government alone. Excuse me. We should also talk to the parents, because we need to encourage our girls. And I'm also really going to encourage the private sector as well, because there are a lot of development organizations and initiatives that are focused to, building the girl child and making sure that STEM education is really embedded, within the girl child education strategy. It's very important because you have to start from scratch. It's something that has to be done from scratch. You cannot scratch the surface with this thing. It has to be started from when these kids are growing up. They're the ones that grow up to become the women of the future. And then we now complain that they don't have, digital literacy or there's no financial inclusion because we never actually started with them. We never encouraged them. And how do we do this? To my mind, we have to first of all work with the gatekeepers. These are like the men in their lives, the fathers, the community leaders, and it's all about moral suasion. I think, their husbands that don't think they should be doing this. We have to actively, either governments, development organizations, private and then also deploy women, because as I think it was Ashley that said it about the fact that, during the study that, in the North, for instance, there's a religious and cultural barrier because men cannot have access to women because of Islam and all this. So you can actually deploy women that are already internet savvy, that are digitally enabled to go in there and talk to these women and build their confidence, because many of them believe they can't do it. They'd rather be a nurse or to be a teacher than to really go the STEM way or go to become something even more technical, a software engineer, for instance, because they feel, oh, I'm a woman, that's not my place. My place is in the kitchen or being a nurse, taking care of people. The soft, being HR, the soft part of, the career, pathway. So we need to really work with the girl child to build her confidence from scratch. This because it's really endemic, and it's not something we can say, oh, we're only working with women. I think we need to start from scratch. And it's the community, the homes, the husbands, the wives, the fathers, the community heads, and then the girl child will be encouraged to actually get this. And then, of course, creating, social network of, illiterate population. So maybe saying, okay, we have associations in the market. You can actually have associations of this network in all these rural areas that, and then you have somebody that's constantly talking to them and teaching them this digital access. That way, I think, it's baby steps and it's one day at a time, but something I think that's doable. But are we going to achieve it immediately? Probably not, but we can definitely achieve it, if we put our minds to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bola. That's been very, very deep also. I mean, what I hear is that we need to start now. We need to start now, not when they are all grown and then it becomes difficult to convince them, right? The journey starts now. Create that social network for them, boost their confidence, and then teach them how to embrace these digital financial services and all. I mean, the journey starts now. Thank you very much. So before I get to ask you, I see Dr. Henry has his hand up.
Yeah, thank you so much. And greetings from East Africa and Uganda. I have been in this space for over 20 years, seeing the whole advent from digital money coming into place. Now, given the conversations when I joined what was on the table, my question goes to all the panelists, and any can pick it up, is that the lowest and most important unit in any society is the family. At what point do we as financial players, whether fintech or banks, go to the level of the family? And I highly respect human-centric designs, client-centric designs in order to boost business, but also there is an element of having to save cost for business entities, which means that random control trials, which are very important, have to be incorporated. So the question is, how are we addressing that? But also during the emancipation of women, many countries, and I don't know, I'm sure Nigeria inclusive, was affirmative action towards women. Even going to university, a number of points are added to the female. Wasn't there recognized an imbalance that at some point the men will react and see it as more favoring the girl, and then the instinct would be, let's use the family structure to keep the women down, no matter whether they are CEOs, but as long as they get back to the family, the man controls the economics of their home. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Henry. Ashley has her hand up, so I'm sure she wants to take that question. Please go ahead, Ashley.
Yes, I can start. Thanks a lot. So, I mean, I think there are a few good questions in there. First, on the topic of research, you're very correct. So, randomized control trials are great. They're extremely expensive. They take forever, but we need them to be done. Human-centric design research is also expensive, and unfortunately, we don't always have a lot of people can do it very well in markets across Africa, although we do have some, but basically our capacity is limited to do that. And so I would say that that kind of research is best done at an industry level and shared publicly across all providers, all players across the industry. I used to work, I was previously CEO of an organization called IFINA that promotes financial inclusion, part of a financial sector deepening network, or FSD network. There's a similar organization, FSD Uganda, in Uganda, and we have across Africa. And so those organizations are some examples of donor-funded entities that help address that gap in terms of research and evidence. Definitely, it doesn't have to only be donor-funded. So I would say, part of what we should actually do is build strong industry associations, including in the fintech and financial services innovation spaces. And those industry associations can start to collaboratively conduct some of that research that can be then used across the entire industry. So that's what I think that point on research is really important. There was something else you mentioned that I wanted to speak to, and I'm trying to remember. I should have written it down. Please, Dr. Henry, what was the last thing that you spoke to?
Thank you, Ashley, and great to meet you once again after years. But also, I spoke about the issue of women emancipation,
yes,
revolution that happened, and the affirmative action. Do we ever look back and think of the effect it has right now when we are driving inclusive finance for women?
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Apologies that I forgot that. I think that that's a very important question. So as many panelists have said, and I completely agree, we need to, over time, really address sexism in society, right? We have harmful gender norms. So they're perpetuated by both men and women. It's the responsibility of men and women to address them. And we've talked about various ways to start doing that over time. So affirmative action is a bit of a workaround response, right, to inequality, but is used as a tool sometimes to really start shifting that balance around women being in influential and decision-making positions, also being highly visible, because we've talked about awareness, right? Being visible as leaders and doers and thinkers in this space. I agree with you that, and I think in Nigeria, for example, we've seen with the sustainable banking principles that were introduced maybe a decade ago, there were some affirmative action type requirements around female leadership in the banking sector. I believe in terms of board membership as well as some other leadership positions. We still see that the banking sector in Nigeria is very heavily kind of led by men, but we do see more gender equality around leadership. And I think that some of those policies have driven that. I agree with you that there can be reactions, right? So you can have negative unintended consequences when you create any affirmative action type programs for women. Again, they're not, ultimately, we want to address the root causes of sexism. But I think that, so I agree we need to be a bit careful, or I would say that I think we need to be a bit careful in how we deploy those programs. But I think that there are ways in which we can have kind of set aside roles, particularly when we know that there are a substantial number of highly qualified women, or we can add the support, through additional training or mentorship or whatever it is, to bring women up to the level of delivery required. I think that, whenever you have shifts in a privilege or power structure, it's the group that had power or privilege and is now losing some of that, can feel that shift and react. And I think, some evidence has shown, even when you talked about the family structure, even when women are increase their earnings, and then maybe increase their power in the home. Sometimes that can lead to negative reactions like increased domestic violence. Unfortunately, I mean, I think maybe we have to address the reaction, right? Because we're not going to say that women should earn less so that they're not exposed to domestic violence or their husbands reacting. So I think sometimes when we're in that transition phase, the people who are losing power are losing privilege that was undue, unearned power or privilege, still may feel that loss and react negatively. Probably the action has to be around educating and informing and engaging them, maybe also securing their buy-in in that process of empowering women, as in this case, and then kind of mitigating that negative reaction.
All right, thank you very much, Ashley, for that and for those answers, right? So on my side, before we finally wrap up, I want to appreciate all the panelists for taking our time to get on this session. And we're excited to, we've learned a lot from you around women in the digital era and how to get the women included, basically. So we're excited that with people like you in the industry, we hope that the narratives will change. And by the time we come back here next year, we'll be having more testimonies, and the rate of inclusion for women must have increased through the various activities that each of your organization is doing. So on that note, I want to thank everybody for your time and then call on Mr. Olu to wrap up. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Before I bring this to a close, on a final note, I'd like each speaker to give the last word in 30 seconds before we run out of here. Mrs. Bola Oduyale, the CEO of CreditWise Financials, are you still here? Can we have the last word from you? If she's not here, I know Ashley, Ashley is still here. Ashley, you want to start with that? Your
sure,
final
thank you,
word.
and I'll try to be brief. I would say maybe just one thing that I don't think we touched on as much today is creating spaces for women who are emerging as leaders in digital financial services and fintech. And I think that there are some easier, relatively easy compared to changing all gender norms in society, things we can do. One is setting up mentorship programs for women at various levels. And in Nigeria, we have programs like WISCAR, Women in Successful Careers, which I think do that well. I think that also creating spaces for women to interact with key stakeholders, because we know if you're creating a startup, building a fintech, that requires finding investors, it requires establishing partnerships, etc. And a lot of times those conversations may, they happen in social spaces as well as professional spaces. And a lot of times men socialize separately from women. Deals are done, in the bar after work, for example, where you may just have men together. So I think we could can also make some
I think we're losing Ashley.
apologies. I think my line dropped. Were you able to hear me?
No, we dropped you off at a point in time.
Okay, but I'll just sum up. I'll say that two suggestions. One is mentorship, and the other one is creating spaces for women, especially women who are leaders in fintech and digital financial services organizations, to engage investors, partners, etc. So enabling, kind of creating those spaces for networking and building partnerships as well.
Hi, sorry, I stepped away for a bit. So you were asking me a question. Do I still have the opportunity to answer, or I can like?
I'm trying to get you. Ms. Bola Duyale, I guess you're back.
Yeah, for a few minutes. Thank you.
Okay, it's just a final word for you in 1 minute.
Oh, okay. So I think I'll just touch a bit on financial literacy, and especially for the rural woman, because they form a larger percentage of the women that we're talking about today, apart from the digital one. So because when these women in the rural areas are financially literate, they have access to some sort of digital whatever. They are able to have accounts in their names. They're confident in using them. They can be financially resilient. They can save. They can have access to loans. They can build a future for themselves and their family members. Because when one woman is empowered, the whole community, the family unit is empowered, and then the whole community is empowered, basically. So I think we really need to think about that. The families are flourishing, the entire society is flourish and then the woman can break the cycle of poverty and hunger and truly changing and saving lives. And I think that's something we need to look at, financial literacy, which women in the rural areas lack seriously. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bola Duyale. Dayo, are you ready to give your last shot for the day?
Yes, please. I'll start from where that doctor asked the question, where he was talking about women emancipation. Okay, so I just want to correct that. When we are talking about inclusion, we are not, it's not about women emancipation as it were. And I do not agree that financial inclusion, including women in the tech space, or a woman being a leader anywhere, should be the reason why a man should be violent at home or wanting to make a woman submit, because he or she feels they are encouraging the women, then at home should be where the women should be subject. I do not see the relationship, although I agree with you that those are few of the issues that the roadblocks to this inclusion we are talking about. Okay, so on a final note, I'll say mind shift matters, especially for the women. We need a mind shift, and we ourselves need to include ourselves. We need to stop denying the fact that the future is set. We cannot go back, we can only go forward. So if you say, I'll wait here, nobody's coming back to meet you, we have to get up and come with everyone. So let's be part of what's going on. Then I also want to encourage associations to make this make it easy for these women to join. We have a lot of associations we have mentioned, but I don't know if people from, for example, my 12 can join such associations. So we can work with NGOs. We have different NGOs who can actually go deep into this rural area, and we can create a platform with them to access these women and help preach this inclusion today. I heard what Mrs. Bola said, financial literacy is key. Not just financial literacy, literacy generally is key, because when we can show them how these things are done and they can do it, they can cascade it down to the family. And also the future we are talking about is also in the hands of these women. When they believe in it, they can sponsor it, they can finance it in their children and encourage the children to go into it. Then the future we are talking about, we can be rest assured that we would have more women included in this space than before. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The last but not the least, the great and mighty here, Martina, your final shot for the day.
Thank you so much, Olu. So my final thoughts for the day and for the panel discussion will be call to action for all of us to move away from our offices in Victoria Island, in Ikoyi, in Maitama, and to go out there to the grassroots to the last mile and see what the women on ground need, and to address those needs by better creating spaces for them, as Ashley said, or by driving financial literacy programs, as Dayo said, or designing the products that are relevant for them and addressing their needs. It's been a great pleasure to participate in this discussion, and I think we've proven once again that we have great minds in this country, great experts that can actually resolve the issues that we are facing. However, what we need to do is the delivery. And I challenge you all to, in a year's time, on the next conference, let us reconvene and let us share the best practices and what has been done in the course of 1 year. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you so much, Martina. Thank you for your last statement. Financial Inclusion Rural Drive. I know 9PSB will support that, and all of us can come together and march towards some rural areas. I can see some people smiling. Ashley, I guess you're ready for that too. So we're all going to go there. We'll select where we're going to go to, and all of us will go there massively. I think an action needs to take place. I can see Ms. Bola Oduyale. So we're going to leave our high heel shoes and whatever we have and march into those rural areas and teach them what we can teach them. That's a call for action today. Well, on a final note, it's been a wonderful time. We started on Monday with a keynote address from Mr. Dr. Paul Oluyikpe, the financial inclusion Abinja in Nigeria at the Central Bank of Nigeria. He gave the keynote speech. We had a session on stakeholders collaboration in the digital era on Monday. We had our digital financial services, agent banking, the need in a digital area. And today, women, inclusive growth in the digital world. The discussion continues, and it has been an engaging and interesting one. Thank you all for making it a point of duty to be here. I recognize all our partners across Africa that are here, from Uganda, Rwanda, Kenya. Thank you for joining. And there are some of my special people here. My brother is here, and my very good friend is here, Dimeji. For people who didn't sleep, in New York, in California, in different parts of the world, thank you for making it a point of duty. On this note, I bring to a close the Financial Inclusion Week in Nigeria. Thank you. It has been an exciting one with each and every one of you. And thank Uche. Uche actually stopped from going for a national assignment in order to be here. Thank you very much. Ashley, your hand is up. I'll give you 30 minutes before I say goodbye.
Sorry, I was just clapping.
Congratulations,
okay. And thanks very much. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. You have a pleasant day and enjoy the rest of your day. It's nice having you here. See you again next year. Definitely it's going to be a physical one next year. We all wait for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. You have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye. You can unmute your mic and talk to anybody you want to talk to in the next few seconds we can.
Hi, it's been a long time. Mayo, how? This
thank you. Oh, Tokwe, how you doing?
I'm fine. I'm fine.
Oh, good to hear you. Good to see you. Well, I can't see you, but I can hear you.
I'm here.
Yeah, it's Ghana. 87.
All right.
Thank you. You have a beautiful day. Greetings to the family.
I will.
Yeah. Mr. Iyoma Andrew, thank you from Kaduna.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for staying.
It's been a great week and I've been enjoying all the programs. Thank you very much. I really
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Like what you said, next year's own, we have to make it physical, no longer.
It's going to be physical.
Yeah,
it's going to be physical. Thank you very much. It's going to be physical. Okay, on the last note, I'm going to end this call, this session for everybody. Thank you very much. Have a very beautiful day.
Next year, more females.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.